What is up, guys? We are finally back with a brand new episode of the Rantcast after 3 long years. Now, in the very near future, we will be coming out with an episode explaining where we've been for the last 3 years, but that's not why we're here today, because Apple just released the iPhone 16e.
What's up, guys, on this beautiful February day, or, well, I guess technically night. But anyway, no matter what, it is a great time to talk about the latest and greatest, maybe greatest is a little bit debatable, but the latest iPhone from Apple, the iPhone 16e, the letter E of which we don't really know what that stands for. I'm going to say economical. I'm just going to make crap up. It's okay. You can kind of make your own E word up for what it means, but yes, we have an iPhone 16e, the latest iPhone, the greatest price.
That's right, guys. Now, there has actually been quite a bit of speculation about what the E actually stands for. One of them is whatever Brandon said. I already forgot. It's late. There's a whole story about this episode that we will tell in the future, but some of the ideas around the E suffix are economical, everyone, which is a little bit weird, and essentials. Now, essentials makes the most sense to me simply because it's a member of the iPhone 16 family. You've got the 16, the 16 Pro, and now the 16e, which essentially gives you the essentials of the iPhone 16. Now, the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the 16e name was this. There was once a Samsung Galaxy S10e, and it looked like this. It was not necessarily a pretty phone, and this is actually not a very pretty picture of it. It's very low resolution, so good job Samsung on that one for sure. But calling it a 16e is, you know, there were rumors about it, and I always just thought it was just going to be another iPhone SE, because that's what the budget phone has always been. You know, it's always just been called the iPhone SE. So to see it actually be called the iPhone 16e was a little bit weird.
Do we know what the E stood for in the Samsung phone?
No, we don't. I think they just made up a random letter to stick on the end of it too, but it also could have just been economical, you know, because it was the cheap Galaxy S10. I've got a few ideas on why they stopped calling it the iPhone SE. The main one, in my opinion, is just because it's not classic anymore. There's no more home button, no more Touch ID, no more big bezels. It looks like a modern iPhone. Now, it still has a notch instead of a dynamic island, but the point still stands that it isn't classic anymore. And, you know, the other reason that I think that it's called the 16e is because it's just a dumbed down version of the iPhone 16. That's my thoughts, at least.
I mean, that makes sense. They basically kind of want to step it away from the SE lineup, but they still want to keep that tier there. But what's also kind of bizarre is the price, which is what, $599, which puts it more towards a mid-tier phone, which I thought from like a marketing perspective, it was kind of bizarre. Like, it just really didn't make much sense now. Like, the whole purpose of the phone just seems, it just puts it in this strange territory that Apple's really never really been to. That's different from their flagships, but it's definitely not a very economical phone anymore.
No, not at all. And we can actually talk about the price right here. As you can see, it starts at $599 for the 128 gigabyte model. And what's crazy about this is it can actually go up to $900 if you put 512 gigabytes of storage in it. And at that point, it's like, why would you not just buy an iPhone 16? You know, like the normal 16.
Yeah, just get a 16.
Yeah. And they cut some significant corners with this phone, all right? Like, check this out. I've got this comparison lined up here. We've got the 16 Pro, the normal 16, and the 16e. First off, there's only 2 colors. You got black, you got white. That's it. Scrolling down a little bit farther, you can see that it does have a glass back, which is very good. I believe the lower-end Samsung phones are still using plastic on the back, which is not that great. But you can also see here that it's got the A18 chip, but compared to the iPhone 16, the iPhone 16 has a 5-core GPU, and the A18 and the 16e only has a 4-core GPU, which is a little bit interesting. And then farther down the page here, we'll talk about the cameras in just a little bit here. There's no camera control as you would expect, but there's also no dynamic island, as I mentioned earlier. But the main thing that caught my eye was the lack of MagSafe. This iPhone does not have MagSafe, and that is crazy to me because even the iPhone 12 and 13 mini had MagSafe. And if I remember right, the 12 and 13 mini also started at $600.
That is so strange, yeah. Why remove such a useful feature that was existent with your phones that were the exactly the same price as before? It's just... Why? I know they're trying to make it cheap, but that just didn't seem like a logical place to cost cut,
No, and it's very weird because MagSafe was a big feature when it came out. It's very useful, I think, but Apple also open sourced MagSafe into the Qi 2 standard. So, you'll find some Android phones having the same circle of magnets on the back of it. But one other thing I do want to mention with this is that it's got allegedly 4 extra hours of video playback compared to the normal iPhone 16, and only 1 hour less than the normal iPhone 16 Pro. And if that's actually true, that's pretty solid. It's a 6.1 inch display. I feel like they should have made it in the form factor that the mini iPhones were, though, just to make the lineup a little bit less confusing. Another interesting thing about this phone is that it's actually got the first ever Apple designed modem. They call it the C1, and it controls your cellular connectivity with, your 4G, your 5G, and also your GPS and satellite connectivity. However, if you take a look at the side of the phone right here, you might notice something missing right about here. Now, if you take a look at, this is an iPhone 14 right here. You see that little window right there on the side, right below the sleep wake button? What that is the millimeter wave antenna, and that allows you to get incredibly fast speeds over your cell data. As you can see, Brandon's got one on his 13 Pro as well, and in my area, I have seen speeds up to 4 gigabits a second over 5G. That's double what I can get with my Xfinity internet at home. They cap us at 2 gigs. So to see 4 gigabits a second just on my iPhone out and about was really, really cool. But because this new iPhone 16e doesn't support that, you're not going to be getting those kind of speeds. Going back to the better battery life on the iPhone 16e compared to the normal iPhone 16, Apple claims that the C1 is the most efficient 5G modem ever to be in an iPhone. Now, that would make sense because it doesn't have that millimeter wave capability, but to be fair, the market for this phone probably isn't going to care about getting those speeds.
I think one thing that we could take away from this is that if this chip is as good as they say it's going to be, and when they start releasing new flagship iPhones, I'm kind of curious, how that will translate. It might be really good, and I'm kind of excited for it. But no, a little bit skeptical. I mean, the phone's not out yet by the time we're recording this, so we don't really know.
Yeah, we're actually recording this video on the day that pre-orders start. It's February 21st, and a week from today is when you'll actually be able to start getting this iPhone. But on the topic of Apple-designed cellular modems coming to the rest of the lineup, if we lose millimeter wave on the 17 Pro, the normal 17, that's not going to be a good look. Because I get it on a budget device like this, not having it, because normal people don't care about having 4 gigabits a second out and about. People who spend $1,600 on an iPhone 16 Pro Max, like myself, those are the people that do care about those kind of speeds, especially when you pay whatever cell carrier to get that kind of speed.
One of my favorite topics to talk about anytime a new iPhone is released is the camera, because it's obviously my job and I love, talking about cameras. I could talk about cameras all day. So what we got for this iPhone is a single 48 megapixel fusion camera, which Apple markets as being they kind of market it as like a 2 times, like it's got 2 cameras in one, but it's not really the case.
Well, the reason they market it as kind of like getting 2 cameras in one is because, it's the 48 megapixel fusion camera. The normal 16 and 16 Pro have this as well as the main camera. But essentially what it does is, as you can see here, there's only the one lens on this phone. But it can still do a optical quality-ish 2 times zoom. And it achieves that with the sensor crop. Because there's so many pixels on that sensor, you can still get a very useful, unupscaled, if that makes sense, 12 megapixel image with that 2 times zoom. Because instead of just using the whole sensor, you're only using the middle 12 or so megapixels. And for those who don't know, iPhones were stuck at 12 megapixels forever. Like the iPhone 6S was the first one to have a 12 megapixel camera, and they only upped it when the 14 Pro came out. That was when the first 48 megapixel sensor came to the iPhone.
This 2-in-1 camera system is basically a fancy digital zoom. I don't know if anyone remembers this that are watching, but like old camcorders had digital zoom, so they have all these like crazy numbers and stickers and stuff on the side. They could do like 105 times digital zoom, which is basically just like if you stuck a video in like Premiere and you just like crop in a whole bunch. It was not real zoom at all. It was no optical zoom at all. And that's basically what this is, but they just like Apple like very conveniently marketed it as this 2-in-1 camera system, which I guess technically isn't wrong if you kind of word it that way, but it's just digital zoom, guys. Apple has not invented anything different, revolutionary here.
Yeah, 100%. And Apple has always been very, very good at up marketing, if that makes sense. They'll take the simplest thing and they'll just describe it in a way that makes you feel like it's the greatest thing ever. And if you guys want a really good example of that, we actually did an episode, I think this was like 4.5 years ago, when they released those like yarn Apple Watch bands with the Series 6. They talked that up quite a bit for it just being a yarn Apple Watch band. So if you want to see that episode, I'll leave a link down in the description for you so you can watch it after you're done with this one.
So another thing that really stinks about this is, remember, this iPhone is really just meant for non-power users. It's just for someone who wants a economical iPhone that they don't want to pay the full price for the higher end flagship iPhones. The optical zoom options you get here is your typical 1 times and 2 times zoom. So you get like a 2 times telephoto and that's it. No ultra wide, which is so bizarre because that is so useful in many situations. Why would you not include that on your basic iPhone? I'd rather have ultra wide than the telephoto thing that they got here.
I think the reason that they didn't include an ultra wide on this is, as Brandon mentioned, this is an economical, cheap entry level kind of to the iPhone 16 family. But I've always noticed ever since they started including the ultra wide camera on the 11 series that the ultra wide camera kind of sucks. Now, if you're outside on a bright sunny day in really good lighting conditions, you can get a really good picture out of it. But as soon as it gets a little bit dark outside after the sun goes down, or if you're just trying to take a picture in someone's living room, it's grainy. The edges on, I think starting with the 15 Pro has had this like vignetting effect that's kind of off-putting. But that's, I think, why they chose to do just the one camera instead of it just having this be an ultra wide camera that can do 0.5, 1, and 2x. I think that's why, because Apple knows that if the only camera on this iPhone was an ultra wide, no one would be happy with the results of it. But it's interesting too, because Brandon mentioned that he would rather have the ultra wide instead of the telephoto, and Apple actually agreed with that on the iPhone 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, the normal ones. This is an iPhone 14 right here, and you can see it's got the 2 cameras, but it's got the ultra wide and just the standard wide. That's all this thing has, because Apple realizes that normal people get more use out of just having an ultra wide and a wide, and the ultra wide is more fun than a telephoto is as well. And that was actually shown, we have an iPhone 10 sitting right back here. This has 2 cameras as well, but the difference between that and, the newer iPhones is the iPhone 10 had a wide and a telephoto. There was no ultra wide on that.
Yeah, and like to add to that, like sometimes like if I'm doing like photography for stuff, maybe I'm just even on vacation or whatever, I do bring my professional camera along with me. And the widest lens I have is a 28 millimeter. And sometimes I can't tell you how many times I've had to use just the ultra wide on my iPhone. And I'm like, on a really good day, it's so useful. It really is. Like I'm actually pretty impressed with even my old iPhone 13 Pro's quality with the ultra wide on there. That sometimes I prefer that over than just trying to like get back super far on my Sony. So it's very economical and useful even for semi-professional use.
It definitely is, especially now that iPhones can shoot RAW photos. You can actually get a very, very useful image out of an iPhone these days. One thing that is really, really nice about the camera on the iPhone 16e is the fact that it can do Dolby Vision at 4K 60. That's really, really cool to see. Now, you're not going to be able to do macro photography like you can with the ultra wide on the normal iPhone 16 and 16 Pro. You're not going to be able to do spatial photos and videos either because, you physically need the 2 lenses at least to do that. But the fact that you can record Dolby Vision at 4K 60 on this entry-level $600 iPhone is actually really cool. And I mentioned macro photography a little bit ago. That's another huge advantage to that ultra-wide lens. Because for those who don't know, I think it started on the iPhone 13 Pro. The macro lens was made able to very, very closely focus on things. That's what macro photography is. And it's been slowly improving every year, but the iPhone 16 Pro saw a huge improvement to that macro capability. I've been very impressed with how close I'm able to pull focus with that iPhone. One last thing to touch on with the cameras, if you look at the default wallpapers on the 16 Pro, the 16, and the 16e, they correlate to how many lenses the phone has. Like you can see there's 3 circles on the 16 Pro right here because it's got the 3 lenses. And it's even organized.
That's very smart.
Yeah, it's even organized in the same kind of layout. The 16 has the 2, as you can see here, and then the 16e just has the 1. So that's...
Dude, I'm geeking out. That's like really cool. That's a nice little touch. It's a good detail whoever designed this like put in there. Like that's...
Yeah.
I would never have noticed that, but it makes sense.
This is the little...
Props whoever made that.
These are the little design elements that just make me love Apple. I love that they just do fun things like this. No one would have guessed. I didn't even find that out myself. I read it on X. But I looked at it and I was like, yeah, whoever said that is right. That's totally what it correlates to. And I think that's really, really cool. As I said, Apple's always been really good at that, little design language that just integrates with their products so seamlessly. We do need to talk about the color options on the iPhone 16e. As you can see on the comparison sheet here, you got white and you got black. That's it. Product red is officially dead. The iPhone SE was the last iPhone on the market that actually had the product red color, and people would complain about the lack of color options on the Pro iPhone, which is a fair comparison or a fair argument, right? Especially when you compare it to the color options on the normal iPhone 16. But at least you've got 4 color options on the 16 Pro. It's a little bit more diverse than just white and black is on the iPhone 16e. But if I were to buy one, that black actually does look really, really clean. I think that looks nice.
I'm not a huge color person when it comes to them because I'm just going to put a case on it anyway. But even like for the 16 Pro, like the color options there, I don't hate it. I wouldn't go for any of the 16 colors though. None of them are me personally.
I just got the black one.
White and black look nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got the black iPhone 16 Pro, and I've been getting the special colors on all of the iPhones since the 13 Pro. When I first saw the Midnight Green 11 Pro in person, I was like, dang it, I should have got that instead of silver. And then the same thing happened with the blue iPhone 12 Pro. So when the 13 Pro came out, I just got the special color for that. And my favorite of all of them was the deep purple iPhone 14 Pro. That was such a perfect color. It was nice and dark. It was very subtle, especially with the black case on it, but just that little hint of purple in there, that was my favorite. And the reason I didn't get the special color for the iPhone 16 Pro is because it's this desert titanium color. I don't want a gold phone. That's all it comes down to. So I just got the black titanium. Another very, very bizarre exclusion from this iPhone is the ultra wideband chip. As you can see here on the iPhone 16 Pro and the normal 16, they've got that second generation ultra wideband chip. On the iPhone 16e, there's nothing. And for those who don't know what the ultra wideband chip does, that is what enables precision finding for AirTags and AirPods Pro and whatever else has it now. And that feature is incredibly useful. Essentially what it does is, like, say you lose your keys, you can grab your phone, open up the Find My app, and tap on the Find button, and it will actually point you to where your keys are and show you how far away you are from them. And that feature has saved me more times than I would like to admit, but you can't do that with the iPhone 16e, and that's another thing that just the regular old iPhone 14 can do. This iPhone to me seems like an iPhone 14 with less features. The screen on the iPhone 14, exactly the same. It's 60 hertz, same size, same notch, same everything. But it lacks that ultra wide camera. It lacks MagSafe. It lacks millimeter wave. And it lacks the ultra wideband chip to do precision finding with AirTags. And when those first came out, that was a huge selling point for those AirTags, was that precision finding. It also does not have Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7. It's only got Wi-Fi 6. And this is similar to the lack of millimeter wave on 5G. Essentially, it just means you're not going to be able to get multi-gigabit speeds over Wi-Fi, which, again, I get it. Normal people aren't going to care about that, but in 2025, I feel like Wi-Fi 7, at least Wi-Fi 6E, should be standard. Another thing that makes this phone incredibly weird is the fact that it, as I mentioned earlier, it's missing all of these features, but it does support Apple Intelligence. And now Brandon is still rocking the iPhone 13 Pro, so he does not have it on his phone, but he does have it on his MacBook. And I think he can agree with me that Apple Intelligence was the most overhyped and the most useless feature that Apple has come out with in years.
It's basically just Apple getting in the whole AI bandwagon. And I'm not saying AI is totally bad. There's a whole episode that we could probably do just on generative AI. But I think, to me, Apple Intelligence just feels like a really half-baked piece of crap that I have no use for whatsoever. It's just it's ChatGPT basically, and integrated in there. And I guess to some people maybe that's useful, but to me, I just don't see anything that could be good that comes out of it. It's just the only thing I really like about it is the logo. Just this nice, brilliant, they with the graph design with it. They use this rainbowy gradient thing going on. I did like that, but overall, I just don't find it that useful or functional for anything that I'm trying to use it for.
Yeah, I will agree that the animation is really, really cool, but with all the hype that was behind it, and they very, very heavily talked about it in the iPhone 16 keynote back in September, and then when the iPhone 16 came out, it wasn't even ready to be released yet. You had to be running a beta version of iOS to have it. And since those beta versions, it really hasn't improved all that much. It's like they promised that Apple Intelligence would make Siri actually useful, and it so far has not done that. Siri has been useless pretty much since it came out, and Siri's been around since 2011, right? 14 years.
That's crazy.
It came out on the iPhone 4S.
iPhone 4S, right? Yeah. It's wild it's been that long, and it's so useless. This is basically them just rebranding Siri to make it oh yeah, look at this, it's AI. You see a lot of companies do this crap too. Like I said, I could literally rant all day about AI in general, how companies will use sort of fake AI stuff to try to hype up things that they already have been doing I mean, technically you could say Siri is AI if they really wanted to, like the old version. But I mean, anyway.
And Siri was technically AI. It was intelligence that was artificial. It wasn't and still isn't very intelligent, but Siri was technically textbook definition AI.
100%. I mean, just like with video games, like I said, I can go on a huge tirade on this, but it's just...
Hold on.
Oh, I hear something.
Siri, stop. I said the SIRI word and it did the HomePods.
I'm surprised I didn't like trip it somehow.
Yeah, that's my bad. Brandon had mentioned generative AI, and that is something that Apple Intelligence can do, and it's done through this app right here. See this little icon with the kitten? They call it Image Playground, and I don't know about you guys, but this icon, it doesn't necessarily feel very Apple. It doesn't feel like something that Apple would have made. I mean, it's really cute. You know, it's a kitten in a bubble. But even just calling it Image Playground for this generative AI feature that, by the way, isn't very good either, I don't know. It's just not very Apple.
It kind of reminds me of like those apps that like Windows pre-installs now, kind of like as an ad or whatever. And this just feels just like that. Like this is... Looking at that doesn't speak Apple. It just speaks some random thing that just somehow popped into my applications that I didn't ask for. But like you said, it is cute.
It is cute, but I agree with what you said, because when it's on the iPhone as well, on devices that support Apple Intelligence, but it's when it showed up on my home screen, I was like, what is this? I didn't download this. And then I remembered. I was like, oh, that's right. This is that generative AI thing that they talked about months ago, and it finally showed up. But I don't know. It was just weird. It was very interesting seeing that just pop up on my phone after that update. To close off this episode, I kind of just want to touch on a couple of things that we lost with the iPhone SE. The iPhone SE was the last iPhone that had a home button and Touch ID. You can now no longer buy a brand new iPhone that has either of those features. Now, with how good Face ID has gotten, I don't really miss Touch ID, but I know that Touch ID and the home button was a big selling point for a lot of people with the iPhone SE, and now that's just a thing of the past. It just doesn't exist anymore. We also lost Product Red. I think they've been doing it since 2002 was when they started partnering with that organization, but there's no longer any Product Red iPhones. The iPhone SE was the last one standing. And the iPhone SE was also the last iOS device in general between the iPhone and the iPad that had the Lightning port. Now, I don't miss that. The only thing that the Lightning port did better than USB-C was durability. There's no argument that the Lightning port was more durable than the USB-C port, but other than that, it was very long overdue that we finally got USB-C on the iPhone.
What's the final verdict? Would you buy it?
Would I buy it? No. And the reason is because of all the features that it lacks. I've been, ever since the iPhone 10, I've been buying the top of the line, highest storage, biggest screen size available on launch day. And this iPhone 14 that I keep holding up throughout this episode, this is my work phone that the company I work for provided to me. It just feels so small, and trying to go back to a 60 hertz display is really, really rough after getting used to ProMotion after all these years. But I do see the appeal of this phone, right? I get it that it's more affordable than a normal iPhone 16 or especially the iPhone 16 Pro. But for me, no, maybe at some point I'll buy one just to take a look at it, maybe do a little bit of a review on it, but as my daily driver, no chance. No way.
That's like kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you the same question because you're still using an iPhone 13 Pro.
Yeah, so I got it like right here. My iPhone 13 Pro, which I bought back in, I believe, late 2021 around Christmas time. It was actually very hard to even get it at that time, and I remember the day when I got it, I'm just like, yes, this is so great, because it was an upgrade from my iPhone XS. But I'm still rocking it. It's running very well, and what I usually tend to do is I buy the flagship, the close to the best iPhone I could possibly get, but still, semi-affordable. I try to skip maybe a little bit out on storage. I don't get the biggest storage iPhone, but I do like trying to get a very recent iPhone that I can possibly get. But anyway, I'm stuttering. The point is I don't think I would get this phone because it's not the flagship. Yeah, it's the latest one, but it doesn't really have the features that I'm really interested in. And I think I'm just gonna maybe just obviously sit this one out and wait for whatever new iPhones they release towards the end of the year. So this might be the year I actually do finally upgrade, I think, but I'm not gonna be upgrading to this phone.
I don't blame you. I am very excited to see what the iPhone 17 has to offer, and I'm also really interested to find out if there's going to be an iPhone 17e. Is this going to be another, I guess you could call it a trim level of the iPhone 16? Are they going to continue doing that every year from now on? I don't know, but I would assume yes. But we won't know for sure until, we get the iPhone 17 and the 18 and whatever else comes after that. But I can kind of see it being a continual thing that gets updated every year, especially since they called it an iPhone 16 instead of just an SE. So there you go, guys. That is going to be it for the first episode back to the Rantcast after 3 freaking years. The next episode that we release of this series will be discussing where we've been, the changes to our setups and equipment that we're using, and a bunch of other things to talk about in that episode as well. But big shouts to Brandon for co-hosting this with me and also designing all these new beautiful graphics that you've been seeing throughout the episode, especially that intro, chef's kiss. Freaking beautiful.
I made it in a half hour. I was kind of rushing some stuff together. But yeah. I'm planning on probably doing more with it. Maybe we shall see. Maybe the next one has explosions and whatnot.
That would be awesome. Yeah. And also
put fireworks in there.
And also a big shout out to Foxton for giving us all the music for this series and every other video on my channel since 2022, I think is when I started using his stuff. But yeah, there's been a lot involved with getting this show back up and running, and we will talk about that in the next episode. Hopefully we'll be doing these every other week throughout this year, but we'll see what time and topics allow us to do with that. For real this time, guys, that is going to be it for the first episode back to the Rantcast. If you want to follow us on any of our other social media networks that we're on, go ahead and click the links in the description. They're all listed down there, and I've got Brandon's channel down there as well, so you guys can go ahead and subscribe to that. And if you want to watch more of the Rantcast, we got a whole playlist. We've been doing this series since 2017. It's been almost 8 years, which is insane.
It's crazy.
Hopefully,
I had no idea it's been that long.
No, it's been a very, very long time. It was July 5th, 2017 was the first episode. Hopefully this is the year that we actually make it a regular thing, but we've said that every year we've tried to do it, so we'll see how that works out. But anyway though, guys, that is going to be it. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, thank you for watching.